And hello. My name is Felix, if you guys don't know. Here to talk to you about Ledger, how to use them. If you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat. I think the first things that I always mention would be to please don't give out your recovery phrase. Don't sign any transactions you don't trust. Lots of news. I guess we got the halving coming up, and in the spirit of that, we've got some promos with the Ledger Nano devices. So definitely check them out if you haven't already. You can get a voucher for Bitcoin, and you can go through what they would be here. And yeah, you can definitely check that out. But we'll get to answering all those questions as well. So first up, we had Mark, a question about any further progress with the integration of ENJ Realchain, Arweave. I wouldn't have any additional dates or anything like that for you, Mark, unfortunately. But yeah, keep an eye out on social media, and we normally try to let everyone know that it'll be in the bottom right hand side. You can see at Ledger on Twitter or at Ledger support. Please check for typos as well, because there are definitely a lot of bots who might ask for your recovery phrase. Next up, we had Terj Storsletten. Have a look through. You mentioned, when I want to withdraw Solana that has been delegated, a new address, a Solana address, comes up that I don't know. Is this a new address that would be entered into your Ledger wallet? What I would imagine, it's probably either going to be the validator address or the program address that you're delegating to, right? So you can just double check what that is that you're seeing on screen versus, you can check via a soul scan what that is in particular to make sure you're interacting with the right thing that you're expecting, and then compare that with what you see on the device to make sure you're signing a transaction that you think you are. That way, you can make sure that you're not signing any potential quote-unquote malicious transactions. Definitely something to keep in mind, though. There have been issues with staking Solana, and why that would be is a bit of a complex issue, being that there's two parts to it. One would be that there is something that we're working on to resolve, but part of it also would be to do with how Solana is potentially susceptible to having you spam transactions. And so because of that, you might have to retry again and again to try and get those transactions to land on chain. Just something to note. You can always as well try something like Solflare, or let me have a look here, which we all have articles of how to connect that all up as well. So if you guys don't know, you can go to support.ledger.com and you can just type your question into the chat, type your question into the search bar, or what you might need help with rather, and then you'll be able to find it from there. Hopefully, yeah, that answers your question. You can definitely try it within Ledger Live. Make sure you double check the addresses, as I said, and then if the transaction might not go through, you can always try a third-party wallet as well. Remember never to import that recovery phrase. Next up was AB. Why Ledger not stable with Near? I did know that there was some issues with an older version. I was actually just double checking prior to coming on stream, maybe. I would want to double check that you're on the latest versions of Ledger Live. That would be 2.7.7.2 for the desktop. I think that's one of the big things that would have helped with a particular error for Near, which you might have been experiencing. That would be the first thing that I'd be mentioning there. After that, you should be good to go. But I mean, again, reach out, and then you can always even pop the case number into the chat if you're still having issues, and I could try to look at that after stream as well. I see more questions from you. All right, we'll keep going in order. So Next up was Rakesh Garg. You mentioned, when is the redemption for the Ledger Nouns SBTB out? So I actually had to double check that. Might be something that you would check with the Nouns DAO. I don't know that we'd have too much additional information. You could also check Reddit as well. They definitely always have a lot of information. I mean, not Reddit, sorry. Discord, which would be named Ledger Open, that you might be able to have a chat with them too. That's also a good place to get that additional information. I don't have that right now for you, Rakesh. But you also asked about the Ledger stacks. It wouldn't be correct to say that the devices have started shipping already. So no, that's not the case at the moment. Next up was Darius. You've got, hi, the nominate button doesn't work. In Polkadot, you have the latest version. Do you know when it will be fixed? Thanks. I don't. This kind of thing, it might be good to double check if you to raise a case with us so we can have a look at what's happening with you specifically. Normally, because Polkadot, staking on Polkadot, it can be quite complex. There are quite a few steps when you're unstaking, things like that as well. If you are unstaking, there should be this one here. I'm just checking internally as well for any issues. 2772 and 339. So that would be one of the first things I think we always mention, just to make sure you're up to date as well, and just to double check if it is displayed orange. Let's have a look here. Even with the latest version of Ledger Live, we're actively working. So if this is this specific issue, Darius, I can pop this into the chat if you want. That's for Darius. You can have a look at that and just double check if that temporary top issue is the specific issue. If you have your ticket number, I can add you on to the list of affected people, but we don't have, I wouldn't have a specific ETA or anything like that, unfortunately. I'll keep going. The Oracle of Crypto has a question here. I have a Ledger Nano X. You can't download the blockchain on my Apple. Is Apple bad? It's a bit of a big question to ask. It wouldn't be something that I could answer in its entirety. I don't think you'd be looking to download any blockchain necessarily, but if you mean to say maybe that you can't get the transactions to appear within Ledger Live, for example, that might be related to a couple of things. So whether or not you've added the accounts. So normally you would have to connect your device. You mentioned the Ledger Nano X, so you'd be connecting with Bluetooth to an Apple device, generally iOS, so an iPhone, for example. And let me see if I can add account, sorry. And then once you, have connected your device, you might need to add an account, and those would be the main things that I would be expecting in particular. Now, if the recovery phrase is the one that you used to derive the addresses previously, then the transactions should appear. If the transactions don't appear, it could be to do with the recovery phrase. There are some instances, if let's say you used a different wallet previously to generate the recovery phrase, maybe the accounts are on a different derivation path, which is a possible thing. Main thing that I always think of if you're trying to track, your assets is we always check on chain and check with the block explorer, something like Etherscan for Ethereum, for example, and you would have others like BSC Scan. A lot of them end with Scan, Salt Scan. Solana Beach is one that doesn't end in Scan. So you can try and use those to check actually what's happening there in particular. But normally it'll be to do with adding an account or how you restored the device. Okay, there are more questions from AB. You asked, if I log in to a phishing website by mistake and confirmed a transaction, can they use my address for another transaction without you clicking? 100% they can. The thing is, what you normally do when you log in, and this, so we have to be very specific here. I would say, interpret you saying log in as you've input a recovery phrase, right? if you've input the recovery phrase, yes, they can manage those assets that are owned by those accounts as if they were you, without whether or not you were using a ledger device or whatever device it would be. The recovery phrase is the thing that generates the public-private key pair that you use to, sign transactions for a particular address. Now, I know sometimes when you log into certain dApps, you may be asked to sign a message. While that, it can definitely be something that you could need to, look out for. It's I would say there's less likelihood that things happen with clear signed messages, but always double check what you're signing, no matter what it is, especially if it's not clear signed. It's definitely something to make sure you're always aware of. So those would be the two main situations that you'd log in. I would consider hopefully I'm right when you say log in. You follow up. I mean, some sites, they ask you to log in by ledger and hit confirm on the ledger wallet, not paste the phrases. Okay, that sounds pretty standard for a lot of ways. If you confirm the transaction though, let's say you confirm. So what I mean that's different from signing a message would be actually signing a transaction that, would also incur a gas fee mainly. So if you sign those transactions, then it's likely that they could take it, but it does depend. I'd actually, in this case, based on what you're telling me so far, would want to get the transaction ID. I know you won't be able to paste it in the chat, but if you go up, try to get a hold of us, so support.ledger.com, and then just use the contact us on the bottom right-hand side here. You'll be able to raise a case and we can get your transaction ID and check what's happened on chain. You can see like how you've interacted with your smart contract as well. So that might be something to try if you really want like some confirmation there. Next up was Peter Nee. Hi there, when will you be implementing Ledger to the ThoughtChain wallet? The way that, if you're talking about the Ledger way of logging in with ThoughtChain wallet, then that would be something that ThoughtChain would do in particular. But yeah, we're always looking to integrate new protocols and things like that, networks and everything like that. But it's definitely something I'll mark you down for as wanting that as part of feedback. I know a lot of us internally definitely use ThoughtChain quite often, so it's definitely something that's on that we like using, at least internally. Hello, Viveshwar. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. Viveshwar Bhatt. Thank you, Oracle Crypto, for the question. Yeah, keep coming if you have any more or anything like that. Always happy to answer them. Kirk Welk has an interesting question, and you've got what's the easiest way to transfer coins between two different ledgers? They cannot be connected to the same computer at the same time. That is correct. Address copy and paste is more difficult. Any tips? So I would actually start by saying, I mean, the send process is the same no matter how you do it. Now, so you would have to, generally speaking, copy and paste the address, or you can use an ENS domain if that's going to be something that you're doing on Ethereum mainnet, for example, Kirk. But one of the things there would be, so the reason I'm trying to go through this would be if both of those ledgers are yours, then if it's just a way to organize your stuff, yeah, you would still have to send them the same way you normally would. If both wallets are under your control, then there might not be a need to send them because they're both under your control. But I guess if it's to organize it together, it definitely makes sense. Two different recovery phrases. Yep, that's still fine. Yeah, you just send them as you normally would. With the send process, you would copy the address, put it into some text file if you need to copy something else, but generally not. And then you can come back and go through the send process. So maybe you go, okay, first I need to receive the assets. So I get the address. I double check the address on the Ledger device against what I see in Ledger Live. And then I go to the send. And then send it from the wallet I want to the wallet I want to. Shouldn't be any difference there. Yeah, you still have to have transaction fees paid in either ETH, BNB, or whatever network it is as well. Next up, swapping. Viveshwar has mentioned that swapping on Ledger is very easy but cost. I would also suggest potentially using something like, let me bring it up. If you go into the Discover section, I'll have my instance come up. There are definitely going to be options like 1inch, Paraswap as well. I personally haven't used P2P, but that might not be related, excuse me, in this case. But definitely I would try 1inch, Paraswap, and also Squid if you're looking to swap. It may depend on what assets you're looking to swap. Where is Squid? Squid, and it'll look something like this. They're definitely some things that I think are very, very much worth using. If especially cost is a factor for you there, Viveshwar, so keep those in mind as well. Next up, we had Terj Stoleton. But will the Solana come to my old Solana address in Ledger Live? Even when I don't know the address, it is withdrawn to. What I was hoping for you to do is when you go through that transaction, I'm assuming you're doing it in Ledger Live, you can actually go and copy and paste that address into SolScan, and you can double check what it is. That was more of a general thing for all cases, and I think that would work for you. So you can check, hey, what this is actually supposed to be would be, either yes, the validator address or the program address that you're validating with. Those are normally the two things that it would be related to, I would say. Because I don't know your specific transaction, I wouldn't be able to say which one it is, but that's why you can double check on chain, and then perfect, you can be absolutely sure, hey, this is the validator's address or whatever it might be. You can even check multiple block explorers if you want to. Yes, and next up was AB. Some sites they ask, oh yes, so login, hit confirm. I think I read through this as well. So yeah, are they still able to access my permission in my absence without hitting confirm for any transaction they might do? So AB, this one depends on, I'll actually bring this up as well, a thing called approvals, especially on EVM. It's very common when you're interacting with some of those decentralized exchanges that I was talking about, 1inch and Paraswap. How that smart contract would get the assets from you to swap and give back to you would be that they need a permission to be able to change the value in the ledger to say, hey, you now have, and when I mean ledger, I mean in the traditional sense. So it would change, instead of having 100 USDT, it would change to having 0 USDT, and then I would send you the, I don't know, link or WETH or whatever it would be back to you and to your address. So if you've signed those transactions, it's possible that the spender in this case can make those transactions without you doing it, because there is their approval there. If you want to be really sure, and this can be quite gas intensive, if you want to do this, you can actually revoke the approvals, and this is what this article is talking about here. And you can, where is it? It should mention rather token approvals with Etherscan, which is quite a large website, and you can see what approvals someone may have. So of course this is, this is Vitalik's address, which is not my address, of course, but you can see that this is how the certain programs or contracts would take. So Paraswap would be able to take, what is it, unlimited of this token and so on and so forth. So that's how that would work. Definitely rambled a bit there, so my apologies about that. But otherwise, so let's say you've not signed any of those approval transactions. Could they sign a transaction without you? No. They would need the approvals of whatever smart contract you're interacting with, generally speaking. Again, can be a case-by-case basis, because what if the entire contract that you're interacting with was compromised? What about something in the more Web 2 in the back end or something like that? So generally speaking, I would say no. If you have some specifics, we can think about that as well if you'd like. Kirk, you've got a follow-up question. Is it okay to copy a bunch of receive addresses to text editor, then do the sending from the source ledger? Or do I do it, I'm just trying to check, do it at a time, one at a time? Now, I would say it depends on the number of assets you're doing, and also the type of assets you're doing, rather. So what I mean by that, let's say you're sending BTC. BTC might be in a whole number of UTXOs, so unspent transaction outputs. And there might be, or they might be in one, or you might want to have them all separate to keep them, to not like mingle them at all. Then you might want to set a couple of get a receive address, send it there, and then get another receive address. You'd have to do it one at a time, but you can continue to get BTC addresses. Why you would do that normally is to maximize privacy, right? Because those addresses may not necessarily have an interaction, but there's still all addresses that are controlled by you and your extended public key. If you're sending it on an account style network like Ethereum, for example, Tron's pretty similar that way, you can just send it to that address and you can keep using that address. Just, I think one thing to note would be, if you are copying and pasting from Ledger Live, you might see an error about Ledger Live detecting that there's a mismatch between the address that you have in your clipboard and what you should have. Why this message comes up is because if you have something like a, what is the word? A piece of malware that's on your device, and it sees that the copied address is going to be a Ethereum address, which it goes by a certain set of rules, and the same with the Bitcoin address, for example. Then it's going to switch it out for another address that the attacker controls. And so when you send assets to that address, even the attacker trying to make the address look similar, for example, that's possible, then you might not even notice and send the assets to an address you don't control, and we wouldn't be able to return those to you whatsoever. So that's why I definitely wanted to go into a bit of detail there. This is definitely something you want to look out for, and make sure your computer is free from malware. So again, it's a bit of a roundabout way to say, generally speaking, should be okay. Just keep an eye out for this error message, and you should be okay there, Kirk. Next up is Sinric. Bit of another interesting question. Is there any method of earning interest or passive income with a stablecoin on Ledger Live? We can actually go through and check that now. In fact, let me bring that up. I remember there should be some for sure. So let's say not Stata. I don't think we'll have. We're staking Ether there. BNB and Matic. Boom, boom. Where was it? There is one that I'm thinking of in particular. Might not be in directly within Ledger Live. Where is it? I thought it would have been here. In any case, I don't know that it's going to be something that I see right now. The main thing I'd be thinking of, I mean, when I do stuff like this, and again, I can't say enough, there's not really financial advice. I'm just a biased guy for Ledger, really passionate about it. I mean, you might think of something like Aave is a service that is outside of Ledger Live. that you might be able to use. You might need to connect your Ledger device to a third-party wallet like MetaMask or Rabby or Tahoe or something like that to be able to interact with it. Or, you know, you can use Wallet Connect as well if that's something that you're more familiar with to interact with these services as well. So just because it's not within Ledger Live doesn't mean it's not possible. Most of the ones that I'd be thinking of would be outside of Ledger Live, especially because you mentioned stable coins in particular. Other than that, I mean, there's a whole deluge of DeFi services as well. So definitely have a look through. I would double check and search online about what has the most volume and just to get an idea for what's popular. Just be careful then when you are connecting with these dApps that you check what you sign, always. And also to make sure that the website that you're interacting with, that's a really quick one, is the exact right address. Sometimes scammers might use typo names and things like that to try and get you to, you know, sign a transaction that would send all your assets. So definitely be careful of that as well. Definitely can be tough. Thanks for doing live videos. Is it possible to XDC on the Ledger Nano X or S? Let's just go over XDC. It wouldn't be something that would be in on your Ledger device. I think I mention it nearly always. It's something that I'm really, well, let's pop this down, that I really like to emphasize because it kind of can change the way you think about the device and everything like that. The device doesn't hold any of the assets. You just have to check if you know, if it's its own layer one, you might need to check if there's an application for the Ledger Nano devices, but otherwise everything is actually on chain, and it's only the public key and the private key that you derive from the recovery phrase, essentially. Anyway, before I go too far, just wanted to mention that. Now, XDC is definitely something you can manage with your Ledger device. You would just need to use a different wallet. You can either use MetaMask, for example. That's possible, depending on the derivation path you were using. And you can definitely find that. You just type XDC there, if you have any trouble. And if I remember correctly, definitely the Ledger Nano X and S both have the Ethereum app, if that's what you need. And you can also find the instructions here of how to do that and even how to connect to XDC wallet. I might actually just pop that in the chat for you, just so it's a little bit easier. I do not see you in the chat, but I'll pop that in there for you just in case. And yes, you can see it's for all three of the devices. All right. Next up was Sam Hill. I did see a couple of the previous ones, but it seemed like it's been rearranged now. I have assets on Pulse Chain stored in my Rabby wallet. I've moved some over to my Ledger that's connected to Rabby. Okay, will these assets show up in Ledger Live, or will these shown in my Ledger? So they won't show up in the Ledger device, like I was saying. None of the assets are on the device, but you might be able to see them depending on if these tokens, Sam, are supported within Ledger Live in particular. I would double check first if Pulse Chain is something that's supported, that we have a supported network for, which I don't actually think is the case. Now, does that mean it isn't supported at all? We might have to hold off because we can check via, let's just toggle this, Pulse Chain. So, okay, so being that you can add Pulse Chain with something like Chainlist, we can add, Pulse Chain as a network to MetaMask or whatever it might be, and then we can try and connect and sign transactions with the Ethereum app when we use that with MetaMask as an example. That would be how I would manage that if I, being that it's not supported directly within Ledger Live. One thing you might need to do as well, before I forget, would be the requirement to potentially add custom tokens if the tokens aren't that common. So, for example, it's you made your own token. Let's say, for example, you wouldn't see it on anywhere. How do you add it? You can go to Assets, Import Tokens, and you just need to know the address, symbol, decimal. You can check as well, and go from there. Hopefully, that should allow you to not hopefully, but that definitely should allow you to manage those assets as well. But with Rabby, I have to check because it's not something we directly support, because I just realized you mentioned it. It does depend if Rabby allows the option to add networks. I'm just checking that now. Okay, you should be able to, yeah, custom RPC. So add a custom provider. Yep, so that's just for QuickNode. Okay, so it looks like it should be possible for Rabby, and yeah, you're off to the races. You just have to follow those steps in particular. You can double check on Rabby's website in particular. Thanks again for the question, guys, A and Sam Hill. Love answering these practical questions, and always the weird ones out of left field are always fun as well. XXX8 is a question. Will quantum computing be a risk to Ledger and other cold storage wallets? I'm not sure. It's always something in the middle there that's blocking. Due to them having the ability to crack seed phrases, I would imagine, no. I actually, you know what? I was going to speculate, but I think that's well outside of what I can predict for sure. My humble, very nothing opinion would be that it probably could be a risk, but it won't be a risk in our lifetimes. That would be my random opinion. But this one's a bit above my pay grade as just a guy answering questions. So T4 KKFI has asked, any new crypto tokens the company is willing to stake? I'm assuming you mean that you would be able to stake within Ledger Live, T4K. You can always double check normally we would mention staking on our, what is the word called, on our social media pages for sure. We like to put out articles for that. Nothing that would be completely new, I imagine, that no one's ever heard of, but I think the big one I always mention would generally be in the Discover section. So Stater and Kiln. Normally I would actually be mentioning Kiln especially as a cool option for staking ETH, although it's one of the blue chips, my opinion. Next up was if anything, existing tokens. Just to follow up there then, we don't offer any staking services in particular, but again, you can use your connection to MetaMask or Rabby as a previous user to actually interact with any DeFi protocols in a lot of cases. That's how I would think would be the easiest, especially for some of the newer protocols that might not be in Ledger Live. I've got a Cyrillic name here. I'm sorry. I wouldn't be able to pronounce that one. Hello, will you add a TON account and not coins based on the and other coins, I'm assuming, based on the TON network? Definitely something that can be considered. It will just depend on if they've got, if you have the application, which they have, as you can see here. But I'm assuming you mean within Ledger Live, because you can see here, it's not something you can use within Ledger Live. You'll be using with my TON wallet, as you can see here. If that's what you mean within Ledger Live, I wouldn't have any time frame, unfortunately. I always feel a bit bad. Can't really say too much or anything like that, but I don't want to get you guys' hopes up as well. But I'll definitely mark you down as something, you know, that you guys want to see. Thank you, T4K, as well. Bit of a slow day today, but I think, guys, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. I'll try to get through them throughout the stream. I mean, there's still a lot to talk about as well, right? If there is a link to, well, let me double check. It was to the Bitcoin halving, if I remember correctly. Definitely something I would suggest you guys read up about if you want to know anything more. I'm always here to answer any of those questions as well. Exciting times, I think. You know, if you and I think there would have been a I already went through the promotion. So if you guys aren't on there, definitely have a look at that. $50 of Bitcoin is a pretty good deal. So definitely check that out. Dirty Dan wouldn't be streaming today. Normally he'd be streaming, if I remember correctly, on Monday. Sorry, it had to be me. That I can't be Dan with that one, unfortunately. All right, but with the Bitcoin halving coming up, it's definitely going to be very exciting times. ETF news around the corner, potentially about Ethereum as well. That's going to be interesting to keep an ear out for. I don't know if you guys or at all want to hear me ramble about that, because I definitely could. And all the things that I am biased for about Ledger devices. But what I'll do, you know, if you guys have any more questions, I'll pop them in the chat. We'll try to answer those for you at all and see if there's anything else you guys need help with and go from there. Will the Ledger stacks have QR code capability? You can definitely put a QR code up, and you can show potentially a QR code at any part of the process. Remember, you've got that screen that app developers can work with, so it's definitely something that's going to be possible. You can probably have like a QR code for your your Ethereum address and your EVM address in general, right on the front screen, and then someone can scan it and just send you stuff. That's definitely something that's possible as well. So definitely something I'm excited by, to have you guys see that and go from there. All right, George, you've got a question here. Let me go back over to the support page, because we actually have I'll go through the steps in particular, and we go through that. You've asked, can you explain how Ledger and MetaMask interact? I have some stablecoins in MetaMask. Are those stored on my Ledger? Because I don't see them in Ledger Live. Don't understand where those are stored. So what it sounds like you've done is that you've got these stablecoins, and they're being held by an address that might be, and you might have to double check this, might be derived from the specific recovery phrase that MetaMask generated, as opposed to the Ledger device. So when you actually go and connect your account, what would happen is that MetaMask acting as that front, normally if you haven't used MetaMask before, it'll ask you to create a new wallet, and that's the recovery phrase that it generates, right? Now, when you then go and connect your Ledger device to add the account, what MetaMask does instead of deriving an address from that recovery phrase that it has, is that it will go and ask the Ledger device, hey, I want to have the address for this device, and I want to get it for this derivation path, for example, and so on and so forth. this is part of why you need to connect the ledger device you can see here, and then you'll be asked to select a specific address or addresses that you want to add. You can see you can change the derivation path here as well. So based on what you've mentioned to me so far there, George, like I think that would be maybe you've sent them to, as you said, the address is derived from the address in MetaMask. What you normally should see actually is a little ledger icon beneath the account that has those assets. So if you go to MetaMask and if you click on this button here, you may get a drop down of a number of addresses. And then you'll be able to, have a look at which ones have assets and which one don't. And most, I would say, based on what you've mentioned, yeah, the ledger might be empty and you might have some of those stable coins in your hot wallet. So they won't be the ones that would be, that would be derived from the account that's on the ledger device. If you want to send them over, you can then just send them using MetaMask because they're derived from that address. And then you can send them to that this address here. You can just copy and paste that address there. And that's it. That would be how that would sound to me at the moment. Hopefully that answers that one. I don't think you'll need this article, being that it sounds like you've already connected it, but definitely just give me a shout out if you do, and I'll just pop that in the chat as well. Dirty, you've got a question. Will Ledger Live ever support COQ Inu? Not one that I'm aware of, but you can always ask the developers to submit their requests for token support in our developers channel, developers. So it's developers at .ledger.com, and then you can, let me get that article for you there, George. But you will be able to have those developers submit their token. They will just need a couple of details to be able to do so. And you should be able to see that one there, George, coming up. And then they can go submit that from there. All right. Next question we have from Jiminy Doge. Are there any plans to support power user features like BTC only mode, or perhaps a stripped down basic wallet mode in Ledger Live? None that I'd be directly aware of, again, but I'm just some guy on stream. I think with regards to those kinds of features, I normally veer more towards, okay, when I want to, especially for, you mentioned BTC in particular, if I'm wanting to craft a very specific BTC transaction, freezing specific outputs, if I'm wanting to set multiple outputs and specific inputs, then I would actually use something like Electrum. I would find that it definitely, to be honest, I'm assuming you'd already be using that at the moment. And I think that's kind of what I'd be using as a workaround for those kind of power user features if you aren't already. But I'll definitely put that on the in the notes to mention that is something you guys are after. Next up, thank you, George, again for the question. Dirty, I'm sure that there are a lot of users holding COQ. That's perfect. Yep, you can definitely have them submit that and we can look that. Normally it's on a monthly basis as well. You can then, if it then appears in Ledger Live, amazing, and then it might take some time to also potentially get that fiat value as well, if that's necessary. Next up, I've got a question here. Hello, I cannot access the security function in setting to set up a passphrase today. It seems missing, but you can in the days before. Any suggestions? You can't access the security function. So let me set up how to set up the passphrase. Normally, you should be, let's see if I can do this. There's Dan as well for the other chatter, but I'm sure you're already aware of this, but it should be, because I don't have a camera in particular. Would you mean to say you can't find this this particular set control center in particular? I think the main thing there is just to be considering where you are on the device itself, and then you can just click to the right to be able to quit whatever application. Normally you might find the application with all of the apps on the screen to be kind of your home, and then you can scroll to which app that you need to open, or you can hold both buttons normally to be able to get to that that control center setting. Definitely shouldn't be missing. It's definitely not something that I've heard of before, because that is a feature that should be on all of the devices for sure. I don't really have too much about that. It might be something, if you want to get a hold of us, support.ledger.com, there's a contact us button. You can raise a case and then we can actually try and see exactly what you're seeing. If you want to take a photo or a video, would work really well. Excuse me. About like where you're getting stuck there. It might be something that's being miscommunicated as well. But definitely should be possible. I mean, I was just setting them up yesterday, actually. Because if you can set it up for whatever you'd like. I think the worst case scenario maybe is if you reset the device. But hopefully that's not the case. And even if you did, if you have the recovery phrase, you can continue to use that as well. Okay, yeah, got off, rambled quite a bit there. If anyone, has any more questions, keep them coming. Otherwise, being a little bit of a quieter day, I'm sure, most people want to hear Dan, the famous, he'll definitely be on later on, normally the next week, early in the week, sometimes on Twitter as well. You can always get a hold of us. We've got Pringles as well, so Pringe rather, let me put it that way. That should be able to help you out with whatever you need on as many platforms, and of course all of my colleagues writing the articles and trying to answer emails as well. Again, guys, if you have any questions, I'll make a last call. If not, we can end it a little bit early, give you some time back. Again, if you guys have any issues as well, if you like you haven't gotten a reply with a ticket, pop it in the chat too, and then that way I can just gather those up and try to have a look at them if I can, or something along those lines. Dirty Uniswap getting sued by the SEC, that was definitely big news indeed. Got to keep an eye on that for sure. It's very interesting to see what happens. I am not by any means a lawyer, so I can definitely have no idea what's going to happen with that one. But gonna have to keep us on our toes, I guess. Not a dull day, never a dull day in crypto. So if that is all from you guys today, again, keep an eye out on social media. We'll have more news about everything. I know you guys do always ask questions about when stacks, when a particular asset. So yeah, we'll always try to shout those out. And again, please don't give out your 24 words. Don't sign any transactions you don't trust. Have a good rest of the week and stay safe in the markets out there, guys. Thanks.